welcome back everybody. This is the Handy Cripple once again. This is unapologetically me, and today we are going to work on base coating. What is base coating? Base coating is literally just putting down your first layers of normal acrylic paint on the model, and then eventually you build up layers and highlights and everything on top of that later. So we're going to do base coating today, and a couple of terms that you're going to need to know are blocking in, because you'll hear me say that. It basically means, literally what you think it means. Any area that on the model that is supposed to be the color of paint you are using at that particular second gets completely coated in that color of paint. And then you move on to your next color and block in all the areas that are supposed to be that color, and so on and so forth until the entire model is base coated. The other one is wet palette. A wet palette is a tray with a sponge in it with parchment paper on top of the sponge. Now you can make a homemade one, literally doing what I just said, or you can buy one on Amazon for like 10 bucks and it comes with like 100 pre-cut sheets and the sponge and all that. And then you just soak the sponge, you put it back in the tray, you put the paper on top of it, and you put your paint on top of the paper. The reason you do this is that parchment paper is semi-permeable, which means that some of the water from the sponge comes up through the paper, keeps your paint wet so it doesn't dry out, because acrylic paint dries really freaking fast. And you want to be careful of that, or you're going to just be wasting paint, and it's not pretty. So, wet palette, especially for base coating. Okay? And yes, I realize that there's some lighting issues. I'm working on that too, but at least I got the microphone problem solved from last time. Alright everybody, we're going to switch over to the fucking painting counter area, and we're going to get started. Welcome. Alright everybody, here we go. For base coating, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our paint. There. Oh, sorry. See if I can get it. There we go. There's our paint. Alright, so this is Caliban Green from Games Workshop. We're going to use many different brands of paint throughout this. So what you do is, it's a base paint. You're definitely going to want to thin it down. You pretty much want to thin down all your paint anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to get one glob like that. Oh yeah, that should do her just fine. Okay, and then we're going to close up the paint. Put the paint over here. Now remember to shake your paints first, folks. If you don't, they separate in the pot if they sit too long. So dip your brush into your water, and it just, you can see it thin that paint right down there. Now we're probably going to have to do two thin coats. You know what? We're going to put a little bit more paint in that. That is, I think that may be a little, we'll try it on the model first. But that may be a little too thin. Come over here. That's just, that's not the brush for painting with, by the way. That is just simply the, transfer the paintbrush. So, we're going to use this brush for now. And here's our model. He's, there we go. He's all ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint these areas here, the armor, this green color, okay? Now if you look at the back of this armor here, let me get you a little bit more, there we go. Look at the back of this armor here. This is actually cloth area. The hard armor in the front, that's what we're going to be painting this green, okay? So we're going to dip in the water, because you always want your brush to be nice and moist. Get any excess moisture off the ferrule there. Ferrule is the, wait for it. That, really getting used to it. There we go. That brass part there, right there. That's the ferrule. Alright, so you got to be careful. You really don't want to get paint in there. It'll ruin the brush fast, but honestly, we're using synthetic brushes right now till we get to the fine details, so, they don't last long anyway. Alright, so here we go. Let's see if this paint is in fact too thin. So you put your paint on your brush, right? And then you give it a little wipe off there because you don't want it just smothering the brush. Alright? And then we're going to go over here. We're going to start blocking in this armor. And you know what? It is in fact not too thin. It's actually pretty good. So, just going to keep on a trucking here. And if you got a little overspill, especially onto that area that I said was cloth, don't worry about it too much, because that's why we're doing the green first, because that cloth area is going to be black. So it'll cover up that green rather nicely when we get to it. Now, this is probably going to have to be an in-part video, 2 or 3 parts, because otherwise you're going to be watching an hour-long video, because this takes a little bit of time, you know, especially if you got to do the 2 coats, which we're probably going to have to do. So, just gonna, there we go. Now, underneath this thigh plate is more thigh plate, I guess, under this part here. Okay, so you have to go underneath it there to get the paint on where you're looking for, okay? So, there is that first coat, I believe, yeah, there we go, on that first leg, okay? And then we're going to turn the model more this way, and we're going to go up to this other leg right up in here. Now, there's less of this armor that you're going to be able to see in there, so gotta just take your time and block in all the hard armor pieces. We are actually just going to do this nice green, okay? Now, if you remember from the dry brushing video, this white on here, I dry brushed on here to leave natural highlights on the white parts and shadows in the black parts. And you'll be able to see that as the paint dries. You'll see a little bit of more, it'll look lighter in certain areas and darker in others. And that's where that dry brush happened. Wherever the dry brush hit with the white is going to be that the lighter shade. That's why we did that. Okay, up here, going to now go, I'm just making sure you guys can still see me. Okay, here we go. Going to go up here and we're going to block in this here, rest of this here upper thigh plate. Okay, now don't forget back here you have an edge. You want to get all these edges too. Okay, see that edge right there where my brush was in the way? That's where you want to make sure you get all these edges and the underneath. Just get a nice coat on there, just because, you know, you want to make sure that you got that color evenly spread. Now, you may see here, oh, wait, wrong way, here we go. I'm going to make this work. Okay, so, right here, this area did not get any green. Well, that area didn't get any green because it's going to be a different color, because it is, in fact, the raised highlight edge. Alright, we're probably going to make that some kind of metallic, or at very least a lighter shade of green. Okay, so that's why I did that. So we're going to rotate this dude back over this way. Come on. And then we're going to, for crimini's sake, there we go. We're going to go in the, oh, need some more paint on the brush here. Alright guys, I'm going to move, now you see me water down the paint, I'm going to move my my wet palette out of the way here so you can, oh, see, now I did get on that edge this time. We'll just make sure you spread it around so that it's not like a big clump, because I did not wipe off the brush properly on that one. And you're just gonna continue to spread that around so that you get it to where it's not, what in the deuce is that? I don't know what that is. Okay. So, because you don't want that detail to be clogged up, okay? So that's why we did that. And we're just going to come over here, finish up this green plate here. Now, again, we got the green on that area. It's not a big deal. We're going to be painting that area again later anyway. It's a method that I'm sure painters have been doing since cavemen. Oh, wait for it, there we go. We're scrawling stuff on cave walls, but I like to coin it the fill method. Stands for fix it later, which we will. So let's see here. We got those plates. All right, now we're gonna go to criminy. Staying in fucking. You know what we're gonna do, guys? We're going to back this out, and in post, I will fix it so it'll look a lot better. Okay, so you guys just be able to see all this. because I don't want you to miss a bunch of it. Okay, so get some more paint on the brush here. Don't forget to rinse your brush every so often because you want your brush to stay nice and wet. Otherwise, you're going to be putting paint on with a dry brush. It's going to feel like you're scraping the model. It's really a weird sensation, and it makes it look chalky. It's this whole thing. You really just don't want to do that. So, we're getting this area in here, right under the arm, and yeah, we're getting a little bit of green on that arm, but again, we'll fix that later. It's fine. Don't freak out if you get paint in areas that you don't want it, because guess what? We're going to fix it later. It's fine. So, here we go. Just going to get this up in there. There we go. Now, these big shoulder plates right here and here, don't worry about those. Those are going to be completely different colors, so you don't need those to be green at all. And then this here, this is a green piece because this is a hard armor. And yeah, there's a little spike on there, and you're like, why are you painting the spike green, Mr. Cripple? Well, the reason I'm painting it green is because I accidentally slipped on it, and I'll just cover it up with a different color later, like I was going to do anyway. So, like I said, this is not super specific work. I mean, true, the more accurate you are now, the less cleanup work you got to do later. But, as you may see already, I shake a lot because my father has Parkinson's. I think his dad would have had it too if he lived long enough. It's hereditary, and I have the beginning shakes, early onset, all that fun stuff. Now, I find ways around it. The biggest way around it is to fix my mistakes later. So that is what I do. Okay? Don't worry, if you make mistakes now, we will fix them. This model will look good when we are done. Alright, here we go. Just making sure I'm still in camera shot for you. Okay, so we got that elbow piece, and we got this here outer bracer, which is good. Now, this center cod piece here, we're not going to do this. Well, you know what? We are going to do this green, and then we'll just do this detail on the cod piece a different color later. I think that'll look good. Yeah, let's do that. And you see, these vampires, this warband, are not naturally supposed to be painted with green paint. Okay? Like, if you look at the box art and everything, it ain't green. It's not. It's freaking red, as a matter of fact. But I am an outlier, and they're my models, and I like to do different colors. I like to be unique. So, that's what I'm doing. Okay? And then here we go. We're going to go up here and keep getting all this here green armor. And yeah, the highlight on the front is going to end up being different afterwards. Don't worry about it too much right now. Just get that green where it's supposed to go. Get it on some of his hair. It's not that big of a deal. Hair's going to be painted black later. It's all good. Okay. Alrighty, let's see here. And just get right up there in the tip there. Okay. Ooh, I want to get under the stagger handle. There we go. Under that thigh plate there. And we come around here to this side and just turn it. You turn the model to make it more comfortable and easier for you to paint. You don't move your hand around and it becomes super difficult to do. Okay, you do that, it's just, it's a nightmare. So, don't do it. Move the model, not you. Okay, move the model where you need it. Don't move you to the model, so to speak, if you know what I mean. Alrighty, so, that is the first coat done. And we're going to come back here in a second, and we'll do the second coat. Alrighty, everybody, we are back now. I realized that you didn't need to see me do the second coat because It's literally the exact same thing I did the first time. Only, again, so that we have a nice, smooth, complete coat over all of that hard armor. Okay, so we're going to move on to blocking in the black areas. Anything that's cloth or leather is going to be black. You may have noticed I switched brushes here. This is a Kolinsky Sable brush. They hold much finer tips. This is a size 2. Eventually I will switch over to a size 0 for closer, for the smaller areas of detail, so I don't get a bunch of black all over that green that we already put down. Now that we already have one color down, we need to be a little more careful. Okay? Because if we're not, then we're going to end up having a lot to fix later. Okay? So, I already thinned down my paints. By the way, the paint I'm using for my black here is AK Interactive Black. Okay? So, start with the cloak, because it's the biggest area that's going to be black. Alright, and we just start brushing that on there. It goes on there nice and smooth because we thinned it down just a hair. AK Interactive paint, I find, does not generally need to be thinned too much at all. Sometimes not at all. But I put like a very small droplet of water in here just to get it to go on nice and smoothly. You see like that right there? Just making sure you guys can still see. Okay, cool. Alright, and then come up here, and now the areas that are green, that we want to stay green, we're going to be very slow and deliberate with our brush strokes that are next to those pieces, because we don't want to make those pieces black. Okay? Is it going to be perfect every time? No. Am I going to have to go back and fix it? Almost guaranteedly. But the more careful you are now, the less fixing we have to do later. Okay? So we're just going to completely coat out this here. We're going to brush the paint around. You don't want it clogging up any of that fine detail that Games Workshop is amazing at making on these here models. So just push it around. Don't let it pool up into an area and thus clog up that detail. Okay? Alrighty. Can you still see me? Yeah. Alright. There we go. There we go. Alright. Okay. So you see, being very slow and gentle and deliberate with my brush strokes here, just to make sure that I'm not bumping into any green. Now, here's a tip you really need to know. You need to make or let the paint completely dry on whatever surface you're painting, because if you don't, acrylic paint will tear. Like if it's not completely dry, but you didn't wait long enough and you went back to put more paint on top of it, you can tear that base coat, and it's just going to look really crappy. You pretty much have to remove it at that point. So, what we're going to do for this inner layer right here, okay, I'm going to turn this guy upside down. Remember I told you to move the model around you, not you around the model. Okay, so we're going to go in here like this. There we go, getting that in there. And again, I know the lighting, not the best. I really need to get like a spotlight thing for when I'm filming especially. Alright, we're just going to come right up to the edge of that green. Now you see me shaking a lot, right? Well, the easiest way to fix this problem is to anchor your hands down. Okay, to anchor your hands down, you do like this here. Both your hands together. A lot of people tell you put your elbows on the table, and if you don't have a back injury like me, that might work for you. For me, I have to find alternate things, and for me, it's putting my wrists on the table. Because if I put my elbows on the table, I'm not going to be able to do anything because I'm going to be dying in back pain. So, all right, so you're literally anchoring your hands together, and then having them stabilized by the table as well. Now, am I still shaking? Of course. My shakes don't go away. So you're just going to take it right up to the edge of that green. Nice and gentle. And we're just going to put our black right in there where it needs to be. Okay? Now, sometimes you might have to separate your hands because of the angle. It's a whole thing. Now, we're getting into smaller detail here, so what we're going to do is set the model down. I'm going to take this brush and we'll wash it off. Make sure it's nice and clean. Rinse it over here in our water cup. Get all that black paint off of there. We'll wash these later. Kolinsky sable brushes you want to actually wash with brush soap. Okay? When you're done for the day. Okay? Because it makes sure that all the bristles, because they're real hair. Okay? Don't do it with synthetic brushes. It's a waste of your soap. It doesn't do anything to the synthetic bristles. But for these, it'll help them keep a tip longer, and it will help them last, a lot longer. So, put this one away. We're going to go down to one of my favorite detail brushes. Also, Kolinsky Sable. This is a Winsor Newton Zero. Now, a lot of people will tell you to stick with a 2 or a 1. It holds more paint and all this stuff. And for them, I'm sure that works great. But for me, I find that a nice 0 works really well for me. I can get in the smaller areas. It holds enough paint. I'm not dipping every 2.5 seconds. So I like the 0. I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to use a certain tool that you like to use. If it makes it easier for you, that is the whole point. Every tool has its place and its advantages and its disadvantages. So just you find the brush that works for you and you use that brush. Someone tells you don't use that brush, you can listen to them, but what if that brush is just easier for you to paint with? Then why are you listening to somebody else? They're telling you their way to paint, which is fine for them, but it might not be fine for you. So you find what works for you and you do it. The whole point here is that we're doing our painting, we're enjoying our painting, and we're getting some models tabletop ready. Okay? That is the whole point. Now, here in a second, we're going to cut to the next color because I don't want this video to be 2.5 hours long. So, here in a second, I'm going to go ahead and screen it over to when we're doing the next color to block in, because you're already seeing how we do this. Any area that you want to be this color, which for me is black, this is the time that we're going to block in all those parts and make them this color. If you need to come back and do a second coat, you do a second coat, but let the paint dry all the way first. Alright, so I'm going to finish up the black and then come back to you guys after it's fully dry, and we're going to work on the next color. Alright guys, here we are. The black is dry. It's on there, all where we need it to be. Okay. Now the reason we're not fixing anything now if we made a little splashes over or whatever is because you don't want to do 10,000 fixing sessions. Okay, so you just wait until you got everything blocked in and then you go back and you do your fixes after that. Okay? So, now we're going to move on to, this is Citadel, this is an air color, which means it's meant for an airbrush, but you can use it with a brush too. I like to do it this way. You don't have to thin it because it's already really thin. But this is called the Castellax Bronze. Now, I think it's a discontinued color. I found it at a store. I bought it, but I don't know. Can't find it on the Citadel color, so maybe I just missed it. But whatever. We're going to use it for this guy's shoulder pads. Now, just for the shoulder pads. Yes, it's a metallic color, but we're not going to do all the metallics in this metallic. We're going to switch it over. This particular model has, for some reason, different colored shoulder blades, and I like this nice, rich red bronze. So that's what we're going to do. Why? Because it's my model, and I can do that. That's the cool thing about it being your model, guys. Alrighty, so go ahead with the brush. Alrighty, we're gonna get to it. I've never used this before. I just opened this for the first time. I just thought it looked really cool in the container, and I was right. It is awesome. It's a nice, rich red bronze type color. Almost coppery, but not just pure copper. So that's cool. Alrighty. We're just gonna, oh, sorry guys. We're just gonna skim this edge right here. Okay, just to try and get it, because you want to paint the edges too. So we're just gonna try and skim it right like this, and not, we're gonna try to not hit that green armor behind it. And I do believe we accomplished not hitting it. Then we're going to come here and you turn it a little bit here, guys, and there's an edge right here too. So there we go. Nice and up on there. We want to make sure we got it coated. Okay, we're going to go rinse our brush. After you use metallic colors, however, you're going to want to rinse out your water cup and get fresh water, because otherwise it will kind of put some of them shiny flakes in the other colors that you use afterwards, and you don't really want to do that. So just remember that when you're done with the metallics, rinse your water cup. I mean, you could use it as an effect and let it give just a tiny bit of shine to the rest of your paint, if you so choose. That is really up to you. Once again, they're your models. Nobody gets to tell you how to paint them. You can ask for people's advice if you want it, that's fine. Or you could just paint it whatever colors, however you want. Don't get stressed into painting it a certain way because that's the way that everybody else paints it. Well, guess what? You're not everybody else. You ain't got to do what they do. Criminy, that hand is just up in the way, isn't it? Alright, let's some angles are going to be really tough to get to, guys. So, just fair warning. And those are almost guaranteedly where you'll have a slip of the brush. But it happens. It's gonna guaranteedly happen. I guarantee you it happens to the best painters. So just do your best, and then if you gotta go back and fix it later, well, just go back and fix it later. You're gonna kill nobody to go back and fix it later. It'll be fine. Alright guys, I'm finishing up these shoulder pads right now. We're going to cut scene to the next color. Alright. And here we go. We are going to move on to the rest of our metallics. Anything like the edge right here of the hard armor that we accidentally painted green that I said not to worry about. Well, this is why, because we're going to hit that up with this. And then here on the metal parts that are on the sheath of the dagger there. And back here, there's a metallic that we're going to separate from this color with this here brass scorpion from Citadel. It's a layer paint. This particular one is thin enough, I feel, to where you do not need to water it down, or at least I'm not going to. You can if it makes you feel better, if you think you got a smoother coat, or that, you know, it's too chunky without it, then, you know, thin it down. You do you. I personally like it, this particular paint, out of the pot. So, and it's a nice orange, orangey type brass. It's really, really pretty. Now, I have switched to, this is still 0, but this is a DaVinci Maestro 0. Now, why did I switch if it's the same size? Because it has a smaller belly, which is the round area, and a much sharper, finer, longer tip, which means for the really, really, really fine areas I need to get in, I prefer to use this one. So, that's what we're going to do. We're going to rinse our brush up here, make sure we're in the shot for you guys here, and then you can just scrape a little bit of the paint off on the pot there, edge of the pot. That's what I do to get the excess paint off of there if I'm taking paint straight out of a pot like that. Okay, and then you just very slowly and gently grab these really fine edges with this paint, and all of a sudden your mistakes from earlier where the green got where it wasn't supposed to go are now gone. Why did we not use a finer brush for the green, you're asking? You might ask. That is because we didn't need to. It was the first color. All the other colors we're going to have to go over it later. We're going to cover up any of the mistakes, and it was way faster doing it that way. So, that's why we did it that way. Okay. Let's see about getting these really, really fine edges here. Now, it is a general rule of thumb among painters, or so I have, learned watching other people's videos, that if you cannot see an area, you don't really need to worry about painting it. Now, sometimes, most of the time, I'll follow that, but there are a few moments where I'm like, that must be the color it's supposed to be, whether someone else can see it or not. It's a personal thing. I try to fight that OCD, because that area nobody was really going to see, but I knew, and I wanted it, so I did it because it's my model. You probably hear me say that a lot, guys. It's your model. The opinion that matters the most about it is yours. Now, do you want other people to like your paint job? Probably. I mean, I like to show off my work. But the choices of color, thickness, painting an area that nobody's going to see, those are all personal choices. And that choice resides wholeheartedly with you and you alone. Criminy sake. Very fiddly areas, folks. Very, very fiddly areas. Alright, so as you can see here, that's what it's going to look like. We're going to go ahead and finish up all those areas, and then we'll cut back to you on the next color. And we are back. We are going to paint the blade of the sword with Citadel Lead Belcher. It's a gunmetal. It's a great gunmetal. We got it thinned down here with some water, and we're just gonna get it on the blade of the sword here. Now, if your tip stops being all tip-like of your brush, you can roll your brush like that on your wet palette. Brings your tip back for you. Now, this works mainly with these Kolinsky Sable brushes. Okay? But some synthetic brushes will do it too, but not for too long. Like I said, your synthetic brushes are going to be your workhorse brushes, okay? I'm applying a lot of paint at one time, and I need it to be, hold more paint, and it's going to die sooner. Or if you're using it on, say, contrast paints, which we'll get into eventually. Or if you use it on washes, which we will get into in the next video, I think. After we get done base coating this model, the next video, I believe, will be about washes and highlights. So, but so yeah, that's what your synthetic brushes are for. Your fine detail brushes, however, probably want to be your Sable Kolinsky brushes. I mean, if you like synthetic brushes, use synthetic brushes. I mean, who am I to tell you what to do? Now, a lot of people will tell you that you should base coat a blade in black and then dry brush your silver, gunmetal, or what have you onto it. Does it work? Yes. Does it work great? Yes. But for the purposes of showing you a base layering video, I base layered it with the lead belcher. Okay? This is why I did it. You can choose which way you want to do it. And there's a fuller in this blade. We're just going to make sure we get the paint in there too, because you want it to be nice and covered and smooth and pretty and all that shit. So, the last part for this blade, we're going to take this and you're going to run it along the edge, because you want that edge to be coated too. Otherwise, you'll see primer or the dry brush highlights through it, or whatever you left, whatever was underneath this metal paint. Now, on the very inside, this is just, again, a personal thing right here. There is a couple little areas that I just want to, in between, that, to me, read as they should be the silver of the blade. And now they are. Okay. Now, we've got, I think there's 2 more metallic areas to go, and then we're on skin and hair, and then we're done. With, well, and bone, and leather. I'm wrong, oh no. Happens. We're going to close up our dry palette, get it out of the way for a second. I'm going to let this dry and prepare the next color, and be right back. And here we go with the little bit of gold that we're going to put on this. It is going to go on the sword guard and the pommel of the dagger and the sword here. This is Liberator Gold from Citadel. It's a nice bright gold, and you might need a couple coats of this. Why is he getting gold on something he's got so many metallics already on? Well, the simple answer is he's a prince. This guy is a vampire prince, and so, you know, they're all shiny and shit. As they do royalty. Am I right? Don't answer that. I know I am. Alrighty, so that is the guard and pommel for the dagger. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for the sword, and then we'll move on. Alrighty, we are now moving on to the leather belt, which we're going to do this nice Mornfang brown. This is an air paint again. They have it in a regular, I think it's a layer, maybe a base, I'm not sure. It's Citadel, but I got it as an air. Again, you don't have to thin it down because it's already nice and thin. So I'm just going to go ahead and coat up his belt and all these little pouches he's got in the back here of said belt. Okay, that's all we're going to do on this step. After this, we're going to go ahead and move on to the bone, and then hair, and then skin. We do the skin last because I ended up getting a lot of paint all over the model when I'm painting. So the skin is being the lightest color that's going to go on here. It's always easier for me to just do it at the end. Okay, so I'm going to finish up his belt, and then we're going to get on to the bone, hair, and skin. And now we're going on to the bone. There is 3 areas of bone on this model. You got here on the elbow, and these 2 large bone wing spiky jobbers coming out the back. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're using Citadel Wraith bone for this. Now, a lot of other colors got on the areas that are going to be bone. Like the green on this one. On the back there's some metallics. You know, so you might have to do 3-4 coats just to get the sharp bone color that you want. Now this is going to, when you first put it on, look way too bright for bone, especially the bone of a vampire. Don't worry, I'm going to fix that later with some washes, which we'll get to in the next video. So don't panic if it seems way too bright. We will fix it. Right up there, underneath there. Alrighty. There's that first piece of bone. Should be about done there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the bone, and we'll move on to the hair. And we are on to the hair. The hair we're going to do for the base coat black. Why did we not do it earlier? Because as you could tell, it was going to get coated in all other stuff. So now we're going to go in and very gently, without getting black all over everything else, we're just going to paint in his hair. Now this is the black that was left on the palette from earlier when we did the leather and cloth. Now the reason that it's still liquid, not all dried up, is because we're using a dry a wet palette. If we're using a dry palette, it would not have that effect. So yeah, that's the benefits of dry palette. Oh, damn it, wet palette. Sorry. Yeah, the benefits of a wet palette are that you can come back to the paint later if you know you're going to need that color again for, you know, so you're not wasting crap loads of paint, because I'll tell you what, paint's not cheap, guys. I mean, it can be situationally, and if you're just looking for the cheapest paints but still good paint, well, sorry GW, but Vallejo is the way to go for that, guys. Great paint. I use it all the time. Why did I not use it on this model? Because the colors I needed, the specific shades and everything, were already from GW. So, GW being Games Workshop, for those of you who don't know, they're the creators of the Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, 40k, Warcry, Kill Team, Underworlds, blah blah blah. Many Underworld, or rather, many Warhammer games. Good fun. Good fun. So, we're almost done here. You can see that with the hair. And then we're going to move on to the skin. So, I'm going to finish this up. Alrighty, folks, here we are. The final stretch. All we have left is the skin to base coat. So, what we're going to do is, I got this mixed up already. This is Electric Blue from Vallejo. Great paint, great shade. And you might be thinking to yourself, why, Mr. Handy Cripple, are you putting blue for the flesh of a vampire? Or, at very least, why are you putting such a bright blue? And I have an answer to that. And that is, this is not the final color. We're going to put another color over this later. Is it technically a highlight? No. But I do it during the highlight stage. It seems more fitting and appropriate to me to do it then, so that's when I do it. And with said color appropriately thinned down, you will get a hint of this blue from under that color, which is the whole point of putting the blue on here, because, I mean, it's a vampire, guys. So we're going to have blue showing through just a hint of it, through the skin tone that we put on later. Okay? Now, for this particular model, the skin areas are as follows. You've got the hands, and then you got the biceps in between the armor, which of course I'm going to end up coating blue because of my shakes. But I'll fix it later. I always do. So, anyway, you got the biceps underneath the armor here all the way up to the fucking army pit. Okay? And this is already nice and thinned down with water, in case you were wondering. Okay, so we got that arm done. Come over here to this arm. Repeat the process. Sort of second verse, same as the first type of situation here. Alright. Just make sure you coat up all those fucking skin parts. And you don't want to build up big chunks of paint or anything, because you want those muscle definitions to show through later when we highlight that up. That way you can really get that detail popping out there. You'll see what I mean in the next video. Which, surprisingly, we're actually almost to. Because we are just about done here. We got to finish up right here. And this here wrist. And this hand. And then we're just going to do the face and neck right quick. Now, I apologize for the length of this video. In the future, I will step through the videos so that you guys don't have to watch a 30-minute plus video. Alright? So, I apologize ahead of time. I'm sorry. I'm still learning how to do this videotaping this stuff. And if you're looking at me right now and you're thinking, man, you just got that blue all over that nice green armor. Yes, you are right, I did. And I'm going to fix that later. Okay. And over that metal. Beautiful. I am just messy as shit right now, aren't I? Let's see if we can... before it dries. Take a wet brush to it, and you can just wipe it off of there. And it's like it never happened. There we go. There might still be a little bit on there. I'll do it. Yeah, there's still a little bit. I didn't get to it fast enough. But we'll dry it. And then I will hit it with the touch-ups. Now, in case you're wondering, I'm not doing the touch-ups on camera. You guys don't need to see me just go back and fix all my brush slips. But if you zoom in on here, you'll be able to see all the brush slips. And they happen. Okay? Don't freak out about it. Alright, so just go back, like I will, off the camera, after everything is dry, and just touch up those areas where you slipped, like I just did on the hair. And you just take their color, whatever color that particular part of the model is supposed to be for you, and very, very slowly, calmly, coolly, collectedly, go back and you just fix those spots. Okay? Like right now, I'm probably going to get some of this blue all over the front of that armor. I'm putting it on the neck right now, so. Whew. Yeah, I've been painting for a couple hours now, guys, so, you know, the shakes, they get worse the more I am using my hands for stuff like this, so I do apologize. But when you see the model again, it will be all touched up, and it will look great. Well, it'll look base coated great. So, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is it for the base coating. I think so, folks. Okay. Now, you might be looking at this model right now and thinking, how is that fully base coated? Because you see the bottom down here, nothing's done to it. I do that part last. Very last thing I do on the model, and the reason being is that I'm going to get so much more paint off over that base. Not intentionally, but it's going to happen. So I will paint it last. That way, basically only having to fix the problems once. I also didn't paint this. I will paint this during the highlight session because special technical paints I'm going to use. You'll see. But don't freak out. So, there we go, guys. That is the base coat of Prince Duval. I know it's a really long video. I'll try and edit it down in post. But, yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.